Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Yesterday afternoon, we got the cattle and calves on feed report. Cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter market in the United States for feedlots with a capacity of 1,000 head or more totaled 11.6 million head on April 1, 2025. That inventory was 2% below April 1 of a year ago, USDA NASS reported. Now, the inventory included 7.26 million steers and steer calves, down slightly from the previous year. This group accounted for 62% of the total inventory. Heifers and heifer calves accounted for 4.38 million head, down 4% from 2024. Placements into feedlots during March totaled 1.84 million head, 5% above 2024. Net placements were 1.79 million head. Marketing of fed cattle during March totaled 1.73 million head, 1% above 2024. Thursday's cattle on feed report came out close to analyst estimates, although placements were slightly higher, and so were the number of fed cattle marketed, noted DTN livestock analyst Shaylee Stewart. When you take into account the 10,000-foot view of the market, the record high prices seen at the sale barns in March, the increase in imports from Mexico, and buyers concerned that feeder cattle supplies are only going to be harder to come by the closer grass turnout season arrives. It makes sense logically why placements were higher than compared to a year ago. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
A dry Friday sits ahead of us. The weekend, not so much. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag weather update. Here's what's going on. We've got a weather system that's brewing off to the west and south, and it's going to make life a little bit interesting over the weekend. But today looks to be another dry one in all parts of the Buckeye State. Sunshine, mild temperatures as South Flow comes up ahead of this next weather system. We get past midnight tonight, and that's when we start to see rain showers build into western Ohio. Clouds will be building ahead of that, but showers start after midnight and then spread across the rest of the state, holding through most of the Saturday time frame. Secondary surge tries to come in overnight Saturday night into Sunday. However, the Sunday part of this seems to want to focus a little bit more to our west on Indiana and Illinois. The main reason for that is the low that this frontal complex goes back to is still in Oklahoma. And let me tell you, it's strengthening. It's going to be a big-time storm. We're looking at strong to severe weather coming across Oklahoma and Kansas for Easter Sunday, probably up into Missouri as well. That low is so strong, it's drawing energy from farther east. So I think that may give us a slightly better chance at patchy dryness through Easter Sunday. I'm not going to rule out showers completely, but maybe it's only a few hundreds to a few tenths. And then as we move into the overnight Sunday night through Monday midday, the frontal boundary associated with that low finally swings through. Have another batch of moisture there. So all in, all done. Let's go from midnight tonight all the way through late Monday afternoon. I think we have to put in here anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5 inches with coverage around 90% of the Buckeye State. I do think the heavier rains are going to skew a little bit farther south into southern parts of Ohio. Behind it, we're dry for Monday night, dry Tuesday, early Wednesday, and then somewhat unsettled for the rest of the week with patchy pop-up showers, again skewing more south than north. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan.
Joining me is Jason Workman of Twin Oaks Farms in Perrysville, Ohio, southern Ashland County. He is this year's award winner of the Environmental Stewardship Award through the Ohio Cattlemen's Association.
Can you tell me why conservation is important to you?
Conservation has kind of been instilled in me over the years from my grandparents to my parents of taking care of the land and leaving it better for the next generation that's coming along.
What does it mean to win the award from the Ohio Cattlemen's Association?
It's an honor. It's an honor that we have strived for, not necessarily the award, but we have strived to make the land better and more sustainable. So I'm very grateful for that award.
Can you touch on, from a high level, broad overview of some of the conservation practices you're doing for both crops and livestock?
We run a 100% no-till operation. We raise corn, spelts, and cover crop rye, alfalfa orchard grass hay, and clover orchard grass hay. Everything is kept on the farm and put back into the cattle, raise out from calf all the way up to feedlot. We do rotational grazing in the pastures. We fence out the cricks. We have concrete creek crossings. We've put in access roads and fenced on both sides to help move the cattle from point A to point B. We're just in the process of putting in a underground tile outlet where we try and catch the water before as it enters the farm and pipe it underground through all the pastures and out to the creek. We're also working on putting in pen pack cattle loafing barn and a covered manure storage system. We've developed natural springs with watering troughs to help minimize the amount of travel that the cattle need to go for water. We put in concrete feeding areas in the wintertime so that it's easier to clean up and haul out.
Thank you, Jason, and congratulations on your award.
Joining me is Clint Wallencheck, Vice President of Product Services for Certified Angus Beef. And Clint, thanks for taking time to sit down with me. Let's talk about overall beef demand. Where is the world in Certified Angus Beef looking at the customer and what they want today?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things that are uncertain, but beef demand is not one of them. We are super excited about where things sit. On top of just demand overall, excited to see it coming from a number of different areas, meaning food service, retail, export business, all showing areas of significant increase.
As we look at what the customer wants, have you found over the years that we need to change the size of any particular cut or the availability because consumers are demanding it?
Consumers, maybe at some level, I think sometimes it's just a little bit of tradition. I think one would be ribeyes, for example. Everybody wants them smaller. And we haven't made ribeyes smaller for over 20 years, and somehow we continue to adapt. In general, I would say consistency, probably a bigger one as opposed to larger or smaller in size, and just having them be as much peas in a pod as we can possibly get.
As we look at the overall efficiency, sustainability, and all these words that are out there, how do today's cattle rank in regard to what they have to eat to produce what we're looking for, the amount of space that they have to do it? Are we doing good things with today's beef industry?
Absolutely. Doing good things, and I think continually to be better. At the end of the day, whether it be sustainable and things like that, just makes good business sense to be as efficient as we can. And seeing a lot of improvements in the way we manage these cattle. Yes, we are increasing days on feed and some things like that are market-driven forces. Again, demand, more high-quality product and some things like that. But absolutely, you got carcass weights up and also making a lot of genetic improvements on top of that.
Website, if people want more on the big picture for Certified Angus Beef from the history all the way to your thoughts on the future.
CertifiedAngusBeef.com. That's your best launching pad to jump in, and all your questions and answers can be handled there.
CertifiedAngusBeef.com. I've been visiting with Vice President of Product Services, Clint Wallencheck. Stay tuned, back with more after this.
Every time you use biodiesel, you're fueling more than your engine. You're investing in Ohio's farmers, reducing emissions and creating cleaner air for all of us. Did you know biodiesel adds 13% in value to every bushel of soybeans grown? That's good for farms, good for families, and good for the future. Drive with purpose. Choose biodiesel. Learn how at soyohio.org.
Soybeans are a game changer for Ohio's pork industry. Pigs thrive on soybeans' perfect blend of protein and energy, helping hogs nationwide devour the equivalent of 292 million bushels of soybean meal annually. Ohio is number 7 in pork production, contributing to the billions of pounds of pork enjoyed by families across the nation each year. From sizzling bacon to barbecued ribs, soybeans power the farms that feed families. Brought to you by Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff. The Trump administration issued a proposed rule to rescind the regulatory definition of harm in the Endangered Species Act as it relates to habitat modifications in a proposal released on Wednesday. In the latest action is what's been a regulatory back and forth from administration to administration on the law. The Trump administration proposed a new rule that would alter a key definition in the Endangered Species Act, according to a proposal by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Department of Interior, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. The current use of the term harm as it relates to the taking of endangered species runs contrary to the best meaning of the statutory definition. We are understanding this change to adhere to the single best meaning, the ESA administration said in the proposed rule. The proposed rule said previous ESA regulations expanded the ESA's reach in ways that do not reflect the best reading of the statute to prohibit actions that impair the habitat of protected species. The Center for Biological Diversity said the rule would rescind nearly all habitat protections for endangered species nationwide in a news release on Wednesday. And oil futures settled higher on Thursday on expectations of supply tightness after the U.S. Treasury Department imposed new sanctions targeting a second independent Chinese refinery accused of processing Iranian crude. The U.S. dollar index remained steady from Wednesday at 99.145 against a basket of foreign currencies. Additional support came from Wednesday's Energy Information Administration report showing a draw in crude stocks at the Cushing, Oklahoma delivery hub alongside declines in recent domestic product inventories. On Wednesday, media reports said that a second independent refinery in China, Shandong province, was sanctioned by the Trump administration as it received dozens of shipments of crude oil from Iran worth more than $1 billion. Some of the petroleum came from a front company for Iran's Parliamentary Revolutionary Guard, U.S. authorities said, according to Associated Press. Sanctions on Iranian, Venezuelan, and Russian crude imposed by the United States have been expected to limit supplies and put upward pressure on oil futures. However, the additional 2.2 million barrels per day of oil output from OPEC Plus countries released earlier this month and additional volume expected in May are expected to set a bearish tone in the oil futures market in the coming weeks. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. For marketing information to LDC, call 574-566-2113. With our analysis, here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finishing mixed yesterday. Corn was down, beans down, wheat was a little bit higher. Slow volume in the pre-holiday trade. Just a reminder, Board of Trade is closed in observance of Good Friday here today. The mixed numbers yesterday, better than expected export sales. That lifted the futures in early on trading, but by midday we basically pulled all of that off. The holiday trade volume has been exceptionally slow this week, more so than in past years around Good Friday. The long holiday weekend in a headline-driven market dissuades traders from expanding any kind of risk. We saw that yesterday. So the idea is, over this long holiday weekend, what surprises can we get? Now, the Mexican president yesterday held productive talks with President Trump. We'll keep the dialogue going from what they said. There's no decision on whether the U.S. and Mexico will engage in a deeper trade discussion. Mexico is the U.S.'s largest buyer of corn, wheat, and beans. At least of this last export sales report, Mexico has secured about 720 million bushels of U.S. corn, or 35% of the U.S. corn sales total. Mexico continues to battle drought, so they need our products. The FSA and USDA reports that for the week ending April 10th, the U.S. sold 2.8 million bushels of old, 10.1 million bushels of new crop wheat, 61.5 million bushels of corn, 20.4 million bushels of soybeans. All of those numbers were fairly significantly above trade expectations, especially corn and for the crop years to date. We're still 27% higher year-on-year on corn, 13% higher year-on-year on beans, 14% higher year-on-year with wheat. Old crop wheat export estimates may be close to USDA's guesses, while corn estimates and probably soybeans are too low. The latest drought outlook shows an expansion of dryness across the plains. However, the central and eastern corn belt are looking just fine. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. May corn closed down 2 on Thursday at 4.82 1/4 cent. December down 3/4 at 4.66. May soybeans 10.36 1/2, down 2 1/4. November down 1 3/4 at 10.32 1/2. July wheat was up 1 1/4 at 5.62 1/4 cent. September up 1 1/2 at 5.76 1/2. April cattle $209.82, up $2.75. May lean hogs $90.40, up 25. May feeder cattle $2.45 higher at $286.85. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ohio AgNet.